Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda.
Hello, David. And hello, Matt.
Hello, Rhonda. Hello, David. So great to be back with you.
Yes, it seems like a long time since we've seen you. In fact, It's been 3 minutes since we've recorded the other podcast.
It's still so great to see you.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And Rhonda, do you have a fan endorsement for us, which we didn't have? Oh, good.
I do.
Cool.
But let me just first say to welcome all of our listeners around the country and across the world that this is episode 314. And I want to say, too, that our last podcast was very thought-provoking for me. You know, there are times when the things that you guys were talking about made me kind of go off on my own intellectual journey and wonder about life. And I really appreciate that. It was really fun. So it's super happy. I feel really grateful that I can listen to you and engage in these really meaningful and fun, discussions. I think other people do too.
Yeah, it certainly is fun for me, and it's fun to hang out with both of you for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, I do have an endorsement, and it will fit in today's discussion. This is from Zoe, and she was responding to our episode 309, which was about Are You Lonely, featuring Professor Mark Noble. And she wrote, I burst into tears and felt seen when Dr. Noble listed the roads to loneliness with his warm and compassionate voice, as I am still traumatized as I witnessed my mother pass away after suffering excruciating bone and breast cancer for a couple of years. Thank you all for a great podcast. I will do the daily mood log and pleasure prediction sheet tonight.
Well, thank you, Zoe, for that beautiful comment, which we've sent on to Professor Mark Noble, and I'm sure he appreciates it as well. And I'm so glad that his comments touched your heart and made you feel seen and understood and appreciated. And I'm so sad at the horrible trauma that you went through when you lost your mother from breast and bone cancer and being in tremendous physical pain. It's just beyond imagination, really, how much suffering she endured and how much suffering I'm sure you've endured as well.
Oh, gosh. For a moment, leaves me speechless. The beauty of your response, David. So let's ask you a question, David and Matt. This is from Roy, and he asks, how can I challenge my core belief that there is something wrong with me? Hello, Dr. Burns. Regarding podcast 294, which was another Ask David episode, I had a few quick questions / suggestions on acceptance. Is it possible to do a podcast with you and Matt and Rhonda on one specific core belief? And that core belief is, there is something wrong with me. I have dated and had relationships with some very physically attractive women in the past. In the last year, I have not been able to duplicate these past successes. And I suspect it's because I am at least 10 years or more older than these women who are between 23 and 28 years old. Let's say I never ever date or have a relationship with my specific type ever again. This has caused a ton of frustration and some depression, low depression, but it has also been a bite to my self-image and self-esteem. Thoughts? Thank you, Dr. Burns. Roy. And he did describe some of his core beliefs, which, let me ask you, David, how much do you want me to read before you can answer?
We might have enough. I don't have it right in front of me at the moment, but I know he's very focused on getting sex with women he considers, really beautiful and really wonderful, as something necessary to happiness, having happiness and fulfillment. And I've also noticed, without wanting to sound overly critical, that it's a lot about what's wrong with me, and if only I could hit on this woman and she'd want to have sex with me, then that would make me feel worthwhile. And then he's saying these 10 years older and the women he wants to date, and maybe that's why they're not attracted to him. And I don't see any role for vulnerability or for concern about others. It seems to be a lot about me, and this can potentially be a turnoff to people when you're thinking you need them to be happy and worthwhile. It's almost like they're objects you want to own and possess and kind of use, and then perhaps throw away when you're done. And there was a time when I was a young man and I was feeling like that too. And I saw, hitting on women, as a kind of a awesome conquest thing. And it's like, once you've had sex, suddenly you're tired of that person. You want to find another one and do it again. This probably sounds horrible, but I think it's not unusual for men to have this orientation. But I think it's also not unusual that this might be turning women off a little bit. And I wonder what you think when you read this fellow's note, Rhonda.
Gosh, I don't want to, I'm going to come across very critical, because I felt very critical when I read his note. I thought, so he only wants to have sex with women who are 23 to 28 years old. As he's getting older, the women that he's going out with, or that potential for dating, is not aging along with him. And and he has to have, what's the definition of beauty for him? And it just feels very immature and superficial.
Right. And then thinking that there's something wrong with me ties in with our last podcast, that all depression results from thinking you have this self that isn't good enough. And that's the exact trap that he seems to be in. And fortunately, there's a fantastic solution to this for Roy. It's amazing. It's mind-blowing. And it's life-changing. And Matt will now reveal what that is.
Oh my goodness. I'm thinking about what Roy is going through here, and he did a lot of work. I'm noticing, so he filled out like a whole daily mood log with his thoughts, and so he's on a good track there. But I think, David, you're probably right that he's turning people off. One thing that he's talking about is he says, I am stuck because my mother said, "What's wrong with you?" when I was a kid. And part of what I'm wondering about is a hidden emotion of anger, if he's kind of taking out some anger that he had towards his mom on all these other women around him, and trying to get them to prove that he's worthwhile. And I think that might give him a temporary sense of, I am worthwhile because this beautiful woman had sex with me. That might be the low road to recovery, but the higher road to recovery would be for him to achieve self-esteem and to let go of needing any worth or basing his worth on anything at all.
external to himself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And some of his thoughts are like, if I played in an NBA or NFL team, then when women would be attracted to me. Or if I were a millionaire, it's awful I'm not a millionaire. So I'm sensing that he's trying to base his self-esteem on these external variables, and including women's approval.
Yeah, and then we were considering doing a podcast today on wants versus needs, and he's saying having sex with some hot babe, excuse the language, but that's the way he's thinking. That's a need, and that'll make me worthwhile. And when you need things, the universe has a way of denying you. And that's because you push away the very thing you want. I'm reminded of a story I've told many times, including on this podcast, but I treated this very shy, ultra handsome fellow who was terrified of women because his parents told him, you're going to be a lady killer and women are going to be crazy about you. And this made him so anxious. He was just got intense social anxiety every time he was around an attractive woman, and then he tried to hide it and didn't know what to say to women, and he kept thinking that he was supposed to impress women by how handsome and wonderful he is, and what an uncomfortable way to have a relationship. And the thing that changed his life was just tell him to do an experiment and to find some woman that you think is attractive and tell her that you feel shy and insecure and around attractive women, and that you've been hiding it all your life and you're ashamed of it and you're not going to hide it anymore. And what does she think? And boy, he did not want to do that at all. But he sat down with this woman on the train and he forced himself to say that. And she got all excited and told him, men are always hitting on me all the time, trying to impress me. And it just pisses me off and turns me off. And here's my phone number. If you want to get together, I'd love it. And then they ended up getting married. It was really, really mind blowing. But vulnerability and expressing some interest in other people can be very, very sexy and very desirable. And maybe there's some need, Roy, to be not trying to impress people with how great you are, but maybe to bring some humility and to impress people with how wonderful they are, and to share your loneliness, and to share with people the real you, and see what happens. Of course, there's no guarantee, and we all get shot down, in life or in the dating arena. But anyway, that's my wimpy, advice giving, which is probably about worthy of being flushed down the toilet. But maybe Rhonda and Matt can give us some better wisdom for him.
Well, when we were off the camera, when we finished recording our last podcast, we were talking about how how blame is so addicting. And it just feels like there's so much blame about other people going on in what Roy wrote and what his thoughts are. Like, he blaming his mother for telling him what's wrong with him when he's a kid, and blaming all these, women of this age category who look a certain way, are rejecting him. And I wonder if doing some, a cost benefit analysis on maintaining that type of blame might be something that would be helpful for him. Or I'm just throwing this out. I don't know if.
Okay. I don't want to throw a monkey wrench into the works, but I'm looking at his negative thoughts, which on our document is on page 17. And I don't see any blaming thoughts. Maybe I'm missing the boat here. He's saying there's something wrong with me. And he believes that 100%.
Well, he's blaming these women for not responding to him.
I don't see that. Which thought are you looking at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8?
I guess I'm just reading into it. Then the beginning, when he's attracted to women 10 years younger than him who look a certain way, and when they don't respond to him, they're.
Well, it could be like they're rejecting him like his mother did, and he says
that sounds so psychoanalytic and reading so much things. He gives us a lot of good material here that is what he's really thinking. Maybe I would be more comfortable if we're focusing on his actual thoughts. Like he says, I'm 10 years older than these women, and therefore my age turns them off. Well, that there could be some truth to that. Women like her with incredibly sexy, attractive bodies only go for high status millionaires. I'm not a millionaire. It's awful that I'm not a millionaire. I'd be so much happier if I was to have a relationship with this woman. The sex would be amazing if I were to be intimate with this woman. I would be so much happier if I was to have a relationship with this woman. I see neediness here. I don't see so much blame. I don't hear him blaming women.
Okay.
But I'm just telling you.
I'm clearly reading into it.
And
you're right. We could just use his words.
Here to ask him, but I think going after the need, there'd be a lot to say about how that belief that I need some external thing to be worthwhile or joyful is a trap.
Yeah, and
how to get out.
Yeah, well, wouldn't the first thing be, what kind of help is he looking for, and what are some of the reasons to maintain this pattern of thinking? Like positives of believing there's something wrong with me. He gave us a list. It's a very easy explanation why these specific types of women reject me. I don't have to make any changes about myself. Or my behaviors. It's a familiar feeling and comfort. There's comfort in familiarity. I can feel sorry for myself and have a pity party. Gives me something to complain about with my friends. My fantasy of the specific woman remains unchallenged, and it's a great distraction when I'm bored. Shows I accept that I'm not perfect and that I have defects. I guess I accept responsibility. I'm getting a little lost here because I'm not sure what we're trying to do for this gentleman.
Well, remember his original question was, how can I change my core belief that there's something the matter with me? There's something wrong with me.
Okay, we could do some externalization of voices on that thought.
Sounds fine. Yeah.
Okay.
We've said in the past that, to be the most attractive quality a person could have would be self-esteem. And if he's going around with the thought I'm, worthless, what is it exactly? There is something wrong with me?
Yeah.
Shall we do externalization of voices on that?
Yeah, I would think that might be a good place to start, assuming he wants to give up that belief. But what are some advantages of maintaining that belief?
My first guess is that he would want to use that belief as a motivator to improve in these ways that he imagines will make him happy. That if I tell myself there's something wrong with me, I'll be highly motivated to go out there and be like an NFL player or some high status millionaire. And then I'll get, all of these beautiful women attracted to me.
Right.
I just need to beat up on myself enough.
Yeah. And another advantage of saying there's something wrong with me might be it shows that he's honest, and because he has many flaws and many imperfections, as we all do. It also gives him like an excuse for when he's not happy and when things aren't going well. It's all because of me, because there's something wrong with me. What are some other advantages that you can see, Rhonda and Matt?
Well, maybe it could motivate him to go to the gym and try to be as sexy and as charming as or motivate him to lose weight, or motivate him to change the way he appears in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows he has high standards. And as you say, those high standards can be motivating.
He wrote number 9 on his list of positives of believing there's something wrong with me. that I don't have to get angry or upset about my mother's poor parenting skills. I wonder, so I'm going back to my original theory, and Rhonda's picking up on the anger too here. I think he's hiding his anger. I think he is expressing anger towards these women. How does he feel towards his mom and towards women who reject him? And would he be willing to get in touch with that feeling?
And let's see where this goes. And suppose he says, well, yes, I feel hurt when I'm rejected, and I sometimes feel angry, sometimes feel hurt and angry and worthless.
But it's better for you to be charming, hide that anger, tell yourself you're worthless, and try to win over these women instead.
I'll let Rhonda respond to that because I didn't quite grasp that one.
I was trying to play the voice of resistance. Don't get angry. Just
get laid.
Yeah, turn that anger towards yourself as a motivator to get laid.
You guys have lost me.
Yeah, I'm lost too. That's why the psychoanalytic stuff sometimes doesn't work for me. It just I get lost. It could be a beautiful route for him. Yeah. I'm just not quite understanding where we're going.
When I find some of his thoughts so insulting that it's hard for me to stay compassionate toward him.
Like which ones? Yeah, because I think this is important because this is a woman's point of view, and I'm not sure he's focusing on a woman's point of view. Well, tell us which ones are the most irritating to you.
Needing to go out with women who are 10 years younger than him. A woman I suspect is a supermodel said no to my request to go out on a date. If I'm a sexually charming guy, this woman will find me attractive. I must not be very attractive. No, not that. But the sex would be amazing if I were to be intimate with this woman. I would be so much happier if I had had a relationship with this woman. Women like her with incredibly sexy, attractive bodies only go for high status millionaires.
And I think what you're saying is what all three of us are saying is these are all kind of like put downs of women.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that we can all agree on. And that's maybe not the best basis for forming loving relationships, including sexual relationships with women.
I agree with that.
And then if he wanted to work on changing that, what would he have to do?
Well, it seems like his relationship with himself is pretty poor right now. That might be a starting point where he's not demanding he be a millionaire or perfect, without any flaws.
Yeah.
With nothing wrong with him.
Yeah.
And, an NFL player.
Yeah, this is making perfect lucid sense. He's saying, I'm not good enough. There must be something wrong with me, and I need some hot babe to make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And to prove, if you had whatever hot means, if you had a younger woman who looked a certain way, then that would prove that he was good enough.
Yeah. And so...
so he's looking for that external validation.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And that I don't think that even works for people who are NFL players with huge salaries and fantastic bodies and so forth, because they do have plenty of women chasing after them for those kinds of reasons. But I don't think that is really a formula for happiness. And if I were to take a page from my book, Intimate Connections, I'd say the first thing is you're not even allowed to date until you can be happy when you're alone. And there's techniques in there to develop self-esteem and self-love. Self-love comes first. And then once someone no longer needs women, or a woman no longer needs a man, then I'm willing to work with you on, your dating and how to play the dating game to win, and then how to develop loving relationships. But until you've overcome the fear of being alone, and until you've come to love yourself, then I think I've never seen someone who started with this basis of I've got to have some external thing to be happy. I've never seen that go in a rewarding direction, to be honest.
Yeah, so some other thoughts are, it sounds like he has a fear that he would never ever date or have a relationship with his specific type ever again. And so overcoming that fear, would that mean he would need to experience being alone and enjoying it?
Yeah.
And realizing that if he never had a date or a specific relationship with his specific type, that would be just fine. He could find joy in a lot of different things in life.
Yeah, and he may and may not be willing to do that and to find that out. I've had patients who fired me for making this request of them. Before I'll help you with your dating, you've got to learn to be happy alone. And some of them didn't like it. And then sometimes they came back to me later and says, you were right. I did learn to be happy when I was alone. I didn't think it was possible. And then all of a sudden women were attracted to me for the first time. And that's where I think I would go with this individual. We could demonstrate how that might work with externalization of voices. I know you're reluctant to use externalization of voices, Rhonda, because one of our people on our poll said they're tired of externalization of voices. But
but it is super powerful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Will you guys do the responses? Can I read them to you?
Sure.
Yeah. Should I start with the first one, negative thought number one?
Sure.
Who wants to do it, David or Matt?
Well, we'll both do it. You can be the negative self and we'll be the positive self. And this will sound like we're being attacked by another person, but we're not. Rhonda is just hitting us with our own negative thoughts.
Okay, ready?
And what's your name, by the way?
My name's Roy.
And what's my name?
Roy.
And what's Matt's name?
Roy.
Okay, sock it to us.
There's something wrong with me.
Nope. Try it in the second person you. That's how the externalization of voices goes.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. Sorry to tell you this, Roy, but there's something wrong with you.
So many things, I don't know where to begin even.
Great. Who won?
Matt won. Matt absolutely won.
Big or small?
Big.
Big or huge?
Huge.
Huge. And how did he win huge? Because it might not be clear to our users.
He won huge with acceptance and humor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's what we're hoping when we're working with the patients. They suddenly see that. Then we would do a role reversal. Let's do a role reversal now and see if the positive Roy will become the negative and vice versa.
Okay.
Even though Matt hit it huge.
Well, but you're the patient, right?
Yeah.
So we want the patient to hit huge once we've demonstrated it.
Okay.
Roy, I've got some really upsetting news, but it's important for you to know that there's something wrong with you.
I'm really glad to know that. And I accept that there's lots wrong with me. There's lots wrong with me that I could work on, and I'm learning what they are every day.
Okay, good. What grade did you get? Did you hit it out of the park?
No, I'd give that a large, not a huge.
And that's why you want to do a role reversal. Do a role reversal back.
Hey, Roy, sorry.
Yeah, I'll try it this time if you want.
Yeah. There is something wrong with you.
Well, there's nothing about me that couldn't be improved. So in a way, everything is wrong with me. But the really cool thing about it is most people don't seem to give a shit. They seem to care more about how much how much interest I have in them and how much respect and caring I can show for them and help them to feel special. But I do want to admit to you, Mr. Negative Roy, I do have one big thing that's wrong with me.
What's that?
Listening to your bullshit, constantly putting me down, constantly telling me I'm not good enough. So to quote the Buddha 2,500 years ago, shut the F up.
And that's what we call counterattack technique.
Right. So who won?
You won.
Big or small?
Big.
Big or huge?
Huge.
Huge. And how did I win huge?
Again, you won huge with acceptance. There's so much wrong with me. There is a little vulnerability that you prefer to focus on, other people and what you can do for them. And then you did the counterattack.
Yeah.
Telling that thought to go away and shut up.
Right. Let's try it with another thought. And I'll be the negative Roy. And who wants to be the positive Roy?
Okay, I will.
Okay. Could I talk to you for a minute? Roy, you know who I am.
You're Roy.
Yeah, I'm your negative self. And
you're my negative Roy.
Yeah, and I want to remind you, lest you forget, that you must get this specific woman's love and approval because she's hot. She's a hot babe. And you need her love and approval to feel good about yourself. And don't you forget it, big guy.
Ooh, that's so much pressure. I'm not sure if I need this specific woman's love and approval as much as I need my own love and approval. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on. Just finding love and approval, accepting myself for who I am. And then once I have that, I think other people will find me attractive, both men as friends and women to date.
Okay, who won?
I thought I won.
Big or small?
Big.
Big or huge?
I thought it was huge.
Yeah,
what did you guys think?
I thought it was huge. See what Matt thinks.
Did you think it was huge?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I thought it was great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Matt, can I hit you with one?
Yeah. What you got?
Women Matt, you're not a millionaire, and it's really awful that you're not a millionaire, because beautiful, sexy, attractive women who are incredibly sexy and have attractive bodies, they only go for high status millionaires.
Oh, actually, I'm not too concerned about that. I was thinking of 3 or 4 other things I might do to have an amazing time tonight. And if anyone wanted to join me and come along and do those things, I would welcome them. But if those women are only looking out for someone with a lot of money or on an NBA or NFL team, I doubt that I would be able to have a really great, intimate, loving connection with them. So I wouldn't be missing out. I'd actually be in a better place doing things on my own.
Mm. So who won that, Matt?
Well, let's ask you, Rhonda, who won?
Matt won, and I think Matt won hugely. And I loved at the end when he said he would not be happy with somebody who was only attracted to a millionaire.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful. It was so fantastic what you did there, Matt. And that's why I like this technique, because you can suddenly see things that you haven't seen before.
Right.
And so my wrap up for you, Roy, I don't know if you're listening or if this has been helpful for you or whatever, but it's totally understandable, wanting to hit on some hot babe and get laid and then feel high for a little while. And I don't hold that against you. I think an awful lot of men, including myself at times in my life, have had that inside of you. Whether it's politically correct or incorrect is kind of irrelevant. It's real and it's powerful, but it's not a very good formula for developing loving, sexy, fulfilling relationships. And I hope our podcast today on this topic has been helpful for you, because you first want to find some love for yourself. I kind of like you, but what would be important was for you to decide that you like you, and spend time alone. Use the pleasure predicting sheet. See how rewarding life can be when you're just being by yourself. And be saying positive things to yourself. So you're putting yourself down all the time, and that's why you're unhappy. It's not because you don't have love, because if you have a loving babe, you'll still be putting yourself down. It's still not going to create that kind of happiness you want. That's got to come from within. And the way to do it is to be alone and learn that you can be happy when you're alone, if you're willing to do that. And the first part of my book, Intimate Connections, has many techniques for achieving happiness when you're alone. And after that, I think that you'll find that the whole world of women and sex and dating becomes much more comfortable for you, and you'll be having something to give rather than trying to find someone who's going to give you something that you're not giving yourself.
That's great, David. I have one other thing to add, but it's actually something you said, which is that you can't earn love. Love is something that's granted.
Yeah.
And it seems like Roy's in that trap of trying to earn love.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And sometimes sharing your vulnerability brings a lot more love than trying to impress somebody. And humility is sometimes a pretty healthy antidote to narcissism.
Well said. Yes, thank you. I really thank you guys for understanding that from a woman's point of view, too. I feel really supported. And I think that the responses were really helpful.
Oh, that's great. I love hearing you say that.
Me too. Yeah.
Okay, let's do one more.
One more question. Okay.
Yeah, we have time for one more question, maybe two. Yeah. Lynn asks, do you have any recommendations for someone with health anxiety? I am a long-term fan of your work, Dr. Burns, and I have a long history of health anxiety. My therapist tells me that this is really death anxiety. I'm not sure I agree, but do you have any recommendations for someone with health anxiety? Maybe imaginal exposure therapy. Imaginal exposure therapy has not been helpful. I would be eternally grateful to you for any insight.
Well, as an aside, I don't want to put your therapist down, but I agree with you. I think sometimes therapists give pat answers to things that are wrong virtually 100% of the time. And I find it disconcerting, to put it in a kindly way. But the question is, how would we help someone with health anxiety? And I can remember, just coincidentally, and we'll let Matt take over here again, but often, the hidden emotion technique is an important key. And when you were a resident, Matt, I had the great pleasure of supervising you, and once we do, and I know that you're not only hypnotizable, but a fantastic hypnotist. And once you had a very challenging student, let's say, to disguise her identity, from University of California in Berkeley, who had been struggling with health anxiety ever since she was a little girl and had had a lot of unsuccessful treatment. And we decided one day to hypnotize her together, because I also kind of like hypnosis and used to do it a lot when I was a teenager. And some pretty amazing things happened. And I'll let you set the scene a little for us, Matt.
Sure. Yeah. That's exactly where my mind was going with this question too, David, is that when folks have, and I've actually had this happen to me in my life, where I was just convinced I've got some sort of terrible physical, medical condition, and then only later realized I was sweeping some feeling under the rug that needed to come out and get talked about.
That's happened to me too, man.
Has it? Yeah. And then but it's always kind of mysterious when it happens. It seems so convincing and real. I don't know if a story would be useful, a personal story or not, but we could also talk about this person is saying that the cognitive flooding did not work for them, that just going over, thinking about dying or something hasn't helped. And I can see a couple of reasons why that might be. One is that maybe they don't want to overcome their fear because they think their fear protects them and keeps them vigilant, going to the doctor regularly, etc. So they'll catch something early. I've seen that pattern. And another is that it's just the wrong approach, right? That the individual's not actually suffering from what they think they're suffering from. They have a hidden emotion. And so in the case that you were fondly recalling there with the Berkeley student, she had this kind of anxiety on an ongoing basis, and you had said, well, maybe we could do hypnosis with her. I was really interested in hypnosis, and we set it up where we did it like a long session. I think it was like a 2-hour session.
Yeah.
And did the induction and then offered her this opportunity to present and see the things that were upsetting to her on like a blank screen.
Yeah, let me tell you how you set it up, because it's colorful.
Okay.
You had her choose to be in a beautiful area, like peaceful, where she's happy. And she said she was barefoot in her backyard, and she could feel. She was very suggestible, as almost all anxious patients are, and she could feel the grass under her feet, and she could smell the flowers and so forth. And then you told her to look at the fence in the backyard, and that it was portion of it would turn into a movie screen, and she'd be able to see things just as vividly as if she was in a movie theater. And then you gave her like a television controller, so if something came up on the movie screen that was too disturbing to her, that she could fast forward or change the channel or something like that to give her a sense of control. And I think we also gave her a word, which at any time she wanted to go back into this deep trance, we would only have to say that word, like rose or something, and then she'd be instantly hypnotized. I don't know if we used that feature or not. I used to use it at any rate, but I remember that was beautiful. And she was obviously went into a very deep trance very readily and quickly.
Yeah, and then as I recall, with hidden emotion, we want to do some sort of uncovering technique. It could be like the what if technique, where interpersonal downward arrow sometimes comes up with, or just guessing at things that could be troubling her. But in this case, I think we did either automatic writing, where had her hand dissociate and then her hand will write down what the real problem is, or just gave the suggestion that she would now be able to understand what she's hiding from herself that is troubling her.
Yeah. We didn't do the automatic writing, but that's a cool one. I'd love to try that myself sometime. But we told her, or you told her, that there's something bothering her, and that she's an overly nice person, and that she's keeping it hidden from herself, and then it comes out indirectly, like I'm dying of some kind of tumor on my spinal cord, or various things you would imagine having, and going constantly to the doctor to get checked out. But that she would suddenly see the thing on this television screen that was bothering her, and then she would feel feelings that she's been suppressing and sweeping under the rug. And I can't remember quite how it happened, but all of a sudden she burst out sobbing. And then she said, "Oh, I see it now. I know what I've been avoiding." And I think you asked her, well, can you tell us, or you decided we'll wake her up and she'll tell us. I can't remember the details of it, but I said, well, what did you see? What are you sobbing about? And she said, I see myself, because she was a young woman, just, a freshman or sophomore in college. And she said, I'm 45 years old and I just discovered that I'm married to the wrong man. And I've been wasting my life. And she started sobbing some more. And then we asked her, said, we're going to have you wake up and then you can tell us some more about this. And you brought her out of the trance and said, if you want, you can remember everything that happened in the trance, or you can forget it. That's up to you. But she woke up, and then she was very embarrassed, kind of, to say that I realized what's going on. And she said that when she made love with her boyfriend, who she loved, but that he was a little bit clumsy at it, and didn't know how to touch her and how to excite her, and that she'd been too shy or embarrassed to tell him that, because she didn't want to hurt his feelings, and it seems forbidden to talk about sex or something like that. And but she was very open. She was very, flexible and willing to try something new. And we told her to talk it over with her boyfriend and to tell her, I've been so embarrassed to talk. It's so personal, but here's what I like and here's what I don't like, and that type of thing. And she did it, and she came back the next week. And this is my memory of it now, and yours might be different, Matt. But it was transforming, and that she was more in love with him than ever, and their sex had improved dramatically, and all her obsessing about physical illnesses had disappeared. But you see, her body was trying to say something that her mouth could not, like. You're killing me, is what she's saying to her boyfriend, because I'm not having sexual fulfillment, but she was too nice to say that. Mm-hmm. And when she found the courage, with your help, Matt, to open up and be real with her boyfriend, their relationship changed dramatically, and she decided he was the one for her. But that's how the hidden emotion model works. And I've treated a lot of people with health anxiety. And I would say, I don't ever like to say, here's the formula for this disorder, because we might use 10 or 15 techniques for someone with health anxiety and do a daily mood log, write down all their negative thoughts and identify the distortions and use a variety of techniques. But this one is quite often where the money is.
Right. I would also wonder if having all these health concerns, I think it was like being in the sick role was a nice way of saying, no, I'm like too sick to have sex.
That could be too, sure.
So it would, be a way of saying no that was polite and would protect his feelings in the relationship.
Yeah. And this all comes on at a subconscious level. It's not she's not plotting these things out like being passive aggressive or something. It just kind of happens automatically. Yeah. When I was after my residency, then you study for the licensure examination if you want to get specialty certification, and but I was kind of that phase of my career. I think I'd opened my private practice, but I realized I had developed a lymphoma in my right armpit. And do you know the stories, Rhonda?
I do, but I love it. So I'm not. I think the last time you told it was probably years ago.
Oh, okay. Did we do it on a podcast?
I don't know if we did it on a podcast. You might have talked about it at intensive.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But, okay. And so I was just terrified. And I finally told Melanie, and she said, well, you're on the faculty at the University of Pennsylvania Hospital. Why don't you just go to the emergency room and have them check you out? And I thought, oh yeah, I think I could do that. So I went there, and a resident, examined me and felt under my armpit and said, I can't find any lymphoma or any mass in your armpit. And I got real mad, and I said, well, I want to see the chief of the emergency room, because I know that I have a lymphoma in my armpit. And so then he came in, the chief of the ER, and he was very patient and felt it and says, I can't feel anything either. And then I said, well, I wanted an X-ray then. And because I'm sure you'll see it on an X-ray. And he said, well, an X-ray isn't indicated for this. And I said, I don't care. I want an X-ray, because I know there's something there in my armpit, and it'll show up. Maybe it's in my lung. Maybe I have a lymphoma in my lung or something. So they gave me an X-ray. So this is so embarrassing. And then they finally said, could you come back here and look at this X-ray with us? I thought, oh no, they found something awful. They put the X-ray up on those viewing machines with the lights behind them, and they said, tell us what you see here. And I looked over it and did all the things you're checking for in a lung X-ray or whatever. I said, I can't see anything here. And then they said, we can't either. And then they said, are you upset about something? And I said, well, it just occurs to me that I have to take my oral boards next week in Minneapolis. And I'm scared shitless about it. That's probably what's going on. And then I suddenly remembered that when I'd been in London, just a few days earlier, I was carrying this real heavy suitcase, and I kind of pulled a muscle in my back, and the pain was radiating around to my armpit. And then I saw what was going on. But that was just a clear example of health anxiety and how it's due to some feeling that you're not acknowledging. And you see, my imaginary lymphoma was telling me, you're in danger of dying, David, you're in great danger. Well, the great danger was taking this oral examination that, my future depended on to a certain extent. But that's the kind of thing that goes on. And that when I took that test, it was so easy. It was really a kind of a fun experience. But I do that a lot. I'll get upset about something, and then all of a sudden I'll think I have some tumor here or something.
Also, it would be such a good thing if you had a tumor, because then you wouldn't have to go take your oral boards.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Just lie down and die.
Yeah, I'd rather do that
than having to fly all the way to Minneapolis.
Exactly. Yeah. It's sort of the armpit of the, no, I'm just kidding.
So anyway, Lynn, thanks for the great question, and I hope this gave you some hint. It's some people, it's just really hard to know when you're upset or what you're upset about, and sometimes you think, oh, it's just this health anxiety, cure me of that. There isn't anything, but there probably is something going on, and it could be in your relationships, in your career, or some friend that you're upset with, some family member, but there's very likely that's what's triggering your health anxiety. And the thing that you're upset about may vary from week to week, and your physical somatic symptoms may change from week to week, but underneath there's always this pattern of being overly nice and then not really owning up to how you feel.
It's like a little red flag waving, saying, hey, there's something up in your life that you need to become aware of and talk about and deal with.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. That was a great story. And this was really an interesting response to Lynn's question. So thank you so much. And I think it's time now to end the podcast.
Okay. Well, we only did a couple questions on this podcast and the last. I hope people like it. Make sure you let us know what you like and what you dislike, because we're here for you, and it's an honor to have the chance to address your questions. It's kind of fun for us, and we hope it's helpful for you as well.
Absolutely. Such a pleasure being with you, Rhonda, being with you, David.
Oh, yeah.
I know, it totally is. Thank you.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.